Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Content Palooza. This is going to be a week-long process where we're going to go live every day at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every day, we're going to be talking about a specific type of content. So today, we're going to be talking about podcasts. And if you're like me, for years, I have said, I need a podcast. And I have yet to pull the trigger on a podcast. I'll just speak for myself. And if this resonates with any of you guys, please drop in your comments because I'd love to hear from you. For me, it was like, okay, well, all the pieces, like, right? Like, what tool do you use? Like, how do you edit it? Where do you put it? Like, for me, it was like all the things. And it's just traditionally just like been a stumbling block for me. I don't quite know why I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I've always have said that, well, maybe, it's like the teacher showing up when you're ready. I'm thinking that maybe that's the case, so that might be you today. You're going to be introduced to some amazing entrepreneurs today who are actually doing the thing, that they do have a podcast and, they've been able to monetize that podcast. And hopefully you'll walk away today and say, okay, I'm ready to pull the trigger. And I'm seeding this right now. Maybe I'll listen to myself. Maybe that'll be me today too. Okay. So we're all in the same boat here. So just want to give you guys a quick welcome again, and share where in the world are you today. I just love knowing where everybody is as they come in. Like I see we've got people from literally we've got quite a few people coming on live, so it's always good to see everybody and kind of get a feel for where they are in the world. I am currently in Virginia. I was just telling Joe, one of our special guests today, I let the cat out of the bag a little early, didn't I? Well, guess you all know whose special guests are today. But I'm in Virginia. We're in a very rural part of Virginia. So hopefully our internet access is going to be amazing today. I'm just also putting that out there so that we manifest that, so we don't end up having any issues. Tech issues, go away is what I want to say. So real quick, let's see. We've got Mark Madden from Wichita. Great to see you. Oh, Barb, girl, I'm so excited to see you. So she's from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I bet it's a little warm down there. And we've got Rob here in the house from Vancouver, Canada. Rob obviously is one of our special guests today. So, all right. So a couple of things before we bring in our special guests. We are going to be doing some amazing giveaways today. So one of those giveaways, well, I won't tell you all the giveaways. I'll share the giveaways in a minute with you. But how do you win the giveaways, right? One of the ways is use the hashtag podcast in the comments to win. We're going to be using StreamYard today as our tool of choice. And they have an amazing giveaway feature that I'll demonstrate here in a moment. But in order for it to pick you up and make you eligible for a gift as a winner, chicken dinner, you have to use the hashtag podcast. Okay. So make sure in the comments down there that you use the hashtag podcast so that you can be eligible to win. We would also love it if you could tag someone. Like if you know somebody that would benefit from today's show, the topic, they've been talking about a podcast. Maybe they haven't started one, or maybe they've started one, but it's like an elephant on their back, or maybe they haven't figured out how to monetize that podcast. Tag them, invite them over. We would love to have them. And as always, please, I am not the only one that's going to have questions here today. I do have some questions because I feel like I'm in, like you guys, in the same boat. Don't have the podcast yet. I do have some questions on how do I get started, right? How do I become a podcast sensation? But I know you're going to have questions too. Please ask them. We'll get to as many of them as we can. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to ask questions and make sure that they get those answers. If we don't get to you, we'll make sure we circle back. Okay. Just real quick, making sure. Rob is saying he sees some familiar names in the comments. Excellent. Okay. So let me get I think we've done all the housekeeping things. One last housekeeping bit. I mentioned tagging people, but if you feel like you would like to just simply, sprinkle this out into the world, to use my friend Molly's term, then please hit that share button and, pass it around to give people a chance to take advantage of the awesome sauce that's going to happen here today. Okay, so real quick, let me tell you about our special guest today. Our first guest is Joe Paluzzi. Y'all, if you don't know Joe, I've known of Joe way longer than I've known him. But he is an amazing entrepreneur, contentpreneur in particular. But he is the founder of multiple startups, including content creator education site, The Tilt. Content Entrepreneur Expo CEX, which is coming up, y'all. And if you do not have tickets, in fact, we could probably get Joe to drop in where you can get tickets if you want one. If you are in the content space and you're using content to attract your person, this would be one of the very best events that you could get yourself to. In fact, I was just telling him I need to get myself there. He's also the best-selling author of not one, y'all, but 7 books, including Content Inc. and Epic Content Marketing, which was named a must-read book by Fortune magazine. He's got a new book coming out in April. He'll probably give us a little sneak peek onto what that's going to be about. He's best known for his work in content marketing. In fact, he is the one who coined the phrase content marketing, y'all. So this is kind of the importance of Joe, okay? I mean, this is how far back he goes and how deep his impact on the space is. He has 2 weekly podcasts, not 1, but 2. So he is an overachiever for sure. The Motivational Content Inc. podcast and the award-winning content news and analysts show, This Old Marketing with Robert Rose. So you guys welcome Joe to the stage. Hey, Joe.
Hi, Kim. Boy, I feel really old after you read all of that. That was just a lot of years going by.
I tell people I'm only here by attrition. I've been doing this for so stinking long that, like, I don't even know. Sometimes I feel like it seems like the years have just like compressed, right? Like it's so surreal sometimes, the amount of time that we've been in this space, and yet it seems like it's just been a blip. It
was kind of that first social media run. I mean, 2007 to 2012, and we were all a part of it. It's very exciting. And now we're kind of going through this again with AI, but really happy to be here, Kim. And I will put all the CEX stuff in the notes and all that good stuff. Yep.
Well, we'll make sure we get that out. And I'm going to take a minute and introduce Rob, and then we're going to start asking the questions. Okay. So let me give a minute. Give me just a minute here, and let me introduce Rob real quick. So Rob is an amazing, I'm trying to remember when I first became aware of Rob, well before he started his YouTube channel. But I remember when he started with his YouTube channel, and he has and that's only been a few years ago. I'm going to ask him. I can't remember exactly, but I remember when he started it and thinking, I need to start being super intentional with YouTube too. Again, fell down a little bit in that lane, but he's got over 1 million views to date on his YouTube channel, his social profiles, and he obviously is the host of the Coffee with Content Creators podcast. Just that alone, the title of that makes me want to go grab my cup of coffee and just hang out with him on his podcast. He's an advocate for content creators. He frequently speaks at conferences on monetization, my favorite topic, revenue stream development, another favorite topic, and the creator economy trends. So he speaks at various conferences, including Vid Summit, FinCon, PodFest, Social Media Marketing World, The Brief by The Marketing Brew, and more. He's based in Vancouver, Canada, where he lives with his family. He loves new places and exploring those places with his wife and kids. And obviously, he is a fan of good coffee. So you guys put your hands together for Rob. Rob, thank you for being here with us today. Oh, no sound.
Yeah, mute. There we go.
Yeah. Technical difficulties on Alive. I was muted. Thanks, Kim. Thanks so much for having me. Good to see you, Joe. Really excited. Big fan of the Tilt and CEX, as you know. So glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time today. So, let's start, Rob, with you, because I know remembering back, like, when exactly did you get serious about your YouTube channel? And now that you've built like over 1 million views on YouTube. What do you feel is like maybe 3 top strategies that you could share with those that are maybe considering a podcast or maybe even have one, but they're not really building audience yet? So what are like your best 3 like top things
Best
that you
3
could share with
things.
them?
Absolutely. Yeah. I started the YouTube channel probably about 4 years ago. I started it because I was working at a company that was serving YouTubers. And so I'm like, hey, I'm gonna put myself in their shoes so I can understand their pain points and see how I can really serve them the best. And so I started my YouTube channel and I had no idea where to start, but there's so many amazing folks. Some of them are going to be at CEX, Roberto Blake and folks like that, and Nick Nimmin, all these guys, Jessica Stansberry. So I really gravitated to them and just learned everything that I could. Kim, to your question, I would say if I was starting again today, which is what I did when I first started, I just did a bunch of collaborations. I had zero audience, and so I, for lack of a better term, leveraged other experts out there that already had an audience that I wanted to get in front of, and so I just started building relationships with them, and then inviting them to join me on my YouTube channel and do a live, a live stream interview using StreamYard, of course, before, even back then. And that was really how I started the channel. I still do that today. That turned into a podcast now. And that's what I would just do. Start with collaborations.
Yeah, you make such a great point for people who are just getting started and they don't have an audience yet. And a lot of times I think that's our freeze point, right? It's like a barrier to entry because they're like, well, who's going to watch? Like, I'm going to create this content and it's going to be, crickets. And the reality is sometimes, y'all, it doesn't matter how much your audience is. There's sometimes you create content and it is crickets, right? Like there's still that. But I love that you talk about how, just a real simple strategy. You don't have to do all the things. Start with something simple, just collaborating with other influencers that may already have an audience. And I'm assuming they would share that within their communities, and that helped you build out your YouTube channel.
Some of them, when I did, you would schedule the live stream ahead of time, so then there's a link that they could share, and you could tag them on social and things like that. After probably about a few months, I've figured that what happened here was when I started doing collaborations, and I never expected it, was that they would invite me to their channel. And so now that opened up opportunities. I'm sure Joe and you, Kim, as well, you do that as well. That would happen. You would now are the guest on someone else's channel in front of their audience, and you get exposed to a whole new audience that most likely is an audience that you want to get in front of anyway. And so that happened. And then, like you were asking there, Kim, after a few months, I realized that when I became a guest, they would then follow up with me with a Google folder with assets that I can use to share that episode with my audience. And so I'm like, hey, that's a really good play. And so I started doing that as well to make it easy for them to share it.
Yeah, I think that's a critical component. If you are going to follow along with this, you have to make it easy for your guests to share it. If you don't, I think you're going to, not have as good a success. So let's shift gears just a little bit. Joe, I know your experience has been focused in mostly the content market. I mean, you've done a lot of things, but you're well known for the content piece of it. So if you're just getting started, though, understanding the valuable content is essential for like having a top tier podcast or making sure that it's a great experience for those who listen. So what are your top tips for crafting that I would call it binge-worthy podcast episodes? Do you have especially if you're, following along with Rob's thought process in the construct of, I don't have an audience already. How do you come up with, do you have a framework you would share for somebody who's just getting started?
Well, first of all, I mean, if you don't have an audience and you're starting a podcast or video show, you're definitely going to want to do collaboration. So his advice is perfect. Now let's just go back to the beginning though, because there's lots of different places that you can build your base. How do you build an audience? You could do that through podcasts. You could do it through email. You could do it through live events. You could do it lots of different ways. But what you want to do is we want to say, okay, well, what is our content strategy? What's the why behind this whole thing? And you want to start with something we call the content tilt, or you want to find your content tilt. And that's an area of differentiation that you can break through all the clutter. Well, what does that mean? It means, let's be honest. Most of the podcasts out there are like hundreds of other podcasts out there. There's nothing different about them. So what you want to do is figure out, okay, what's my content niche that I'm focused on that's a little bit different than most? And who's the audience that I'm targeting? And is it niche enough where I actually have an opportunity to be the leading expert in the world at that thing? So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're going into, Rob and I, we do a lot of talks around the creator economy, around content creation. If you're going to say, oh, I'm going to do a podcast on content creation, good luck building an audience. You're immediately competing with 100,000 other content creators, podcasts and videos and TikToks and Instas and all that stuff. So what we want to do is figure out, okay, let's get it really focused on what's the part of content creation that specifically you're going to talk about. Maybe that is something like a podcast show on StreamYard. Maybe it's something where you're targeting an audience of people over 60 at second careers. I don't know. But you want it to be something where if you do the work and you go and you deliver consistently over a long period of time, you have an opportunity to be the go-to person. And that's what, when I started in content marketing, as you were talking about, Kim, in 2001, and then launched Content Marketing Institute in 2007, we had an opportunity because there were only a handful of competitors out there doing it at that time. If I would have launched Content Marketing Institute, let's say in 2014, 15, I wouldn't have had a chance. Just way too competitive for what we were going at. So I want everyone to jump. I love people that are doing any kind of content creation. I'd love you to jump into podcasting or video shows or whatever. But let's just take a step back and say, okay, is there an opportunity for me, if I do all the blocking and tackling, that I can build an audience? So I like to start with this thing called the content tilt and say, okay, what's my content niche? Who's my target audience? Do I have this opportunity to differentiate? And then we can go from there.
Such a great point. I think lots of times I've told people this for years, like if I had to start in social media today, there'd be no way I could be as competitive as I was in the early days and build the audience that I built, because it's totally different today than it was back then. And so understanding that you can come, a lot of people say, well, I can't do that or the other thing because there's 1,000 other people doing the same thing, right? But coming up with that differentiator, it could be, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be something major. It can be something, just different, unique, that is a angle or a way that you do it that someone else doesn't teach. So I think that's such a great point. Today we're overcome with all of the things, and it's a lot to stand out these days. Mm-hmm. So, well, one of the things, Rob, I think that you really keyed in on your bio is monetization. Yeah. When it comes to content, and Joe and I was talking about this before we started the show today, and the difference between a content creator and a content entrepreneur. I think they're very different people. Like Joe made a great point. He's like, he has a friend who says, if you're a content creator and that's all you do during the course of the day, then how are you going to make money, right? So you have to understand going in, and that's one of my goals, honestly, for all of you guys that are here, is knowing ahead of time how to monetize is half the battle. So that's my question to you, Rob, is what are some proven methods that you've used to monetize your podcast quickly? And, more specifically, if somebody's just getting started, how can they implement these strategies from day one so that they're not trying to figure out a year down the road, I've been doing this, but I'm making no money?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a very important question. We talk about that a lot on the podcast. There's so many content creators out there, and I feel like, creating content can be, and I've met a lot of creators. It's like, I would do this for free. This is a passion for me. And I mean, that's really good. I think it should be. But I think that, resources like financial resources allows you to expand your message and reach more people, which is going to be really good. And again, it's sustainable for you as someone that is creating content. You can serve your audience better. And so the monetization part is very key. The way that I look at monetization for content creators, podcasters, even in specifically, is there's certain things that you can do based on sort of your audience size, and not just your audience size, but also like how loyal are they? How connected are you to that audience, right? There's certain things that you can do. So as you're beginning, for example, like when I started my YouTube channel, affiliate marketing is a fairly low lift, low barrier, revenue stream that you can create, right? People find your videos or your podcast, and they find value in what you're sharing, or you're talking about StreamYard, for example, or a camera or some gear services. There's usually some type of affiliate program in place there. As your audience grows and you're building your list or your reach, you can do certain things like coaching and consulting. For a lot of people that are sort of looking at this like internet online revenue, it's not as sexy because it's not automated. It's time for money, but I think it's a really important revenue stream in the early days, for someone that's creating content, building an audience, because it really allows you to speak to your audience and understand their pain points, which honestly gives you such valuable data and insights into the pain points that you can serve, which then helps you make decisions on what products and services you will build as your audience and your business matures. As again, moving down the line there, you can then start thinking about single sale digital products, courses, templates, guides, that sort of thing. And then more established creators, as you build your audience and loyalty, there's brand deals, memberships, merch, live events like Joe is doing with CEX, which you can't do in the beginning. If you have no audience, you can't just jump into a live event and expect to have success. So that's kind of how I kind of pinpoint it. It's kind of like a video game, as you have more, points and experience points and audience, and then you can start building out multiple revenue streams.
One thing I really wanted to kind of key in on, because this is from my own personal experience too, slightly different content box, but it's the concept is still the same, the affiliate marketing space, y'all. Seriously, if you approach this through the lens of starting from day one and being intentional with that builds over time as your audience builds, and it truly starts to become a passive revenue stream for you. So unfortunately, I didn't do that with my blog when I first started, and I had to circle back, and I, going back through all my top tier content, where could I insert affiliate revenue links, or so that when people clicked on those, I would get the ability to generate revenue. So now my blog generates about 6 figures in business, revenue for me, just purely based on affiliate links in my blog content. But I didn't know to do that out the gate. So how much money did I leave on the table? So I really want to highlight that, because if you're going to start something, like this, where you have a content bucket, if you will, whether it's a podcast or a live show or a blog or whatever, being intentional with that affiliate revenue opportunity is huge. So just thought I'd throw that in real quick from a personal story. Joe, you got
Kim, no, that's a great point. Just to build on the whole monetization thing. When we talk to a lot of the creators that are coming to Content Entrepreneur Expo, they basically drive revenues 5, 6, 7 different ways. This is really important. I mean, if you look at a millionaire out there, millionaires make money lots of different ways. They have stocks, they have bonds, they sell real estate. They've got all side businesses going on. So they're driving revenue many, many different ways. You have to think that way as a content entrepreneur as well. So if you're starting, great, affiliate revenue is a great way to start. And then you might say, oh, no, I'm going to launch an ebook or a book or an audio book. And then you add that in. And then you say, oh, I'm going to do a virtual event. Then I might do some sponsorship on my podcast. And then you might say, oh, I'm going to launch a product over here. Now, this doesn't just happen at one time, but you need to start with that mentality as you're building a mini media business here. And many media businesses don't run by 1 or 2 revenue opportunities alone. They run by many different ones. And once you get that set up and you got those levers moving, it protects you against downside. Because you might say, oh, well, the book's not selling really well, or the book's selling great and the live event's not doing well, but these things move along. So if you look at a site like a Morning Brew, you'll see that, wow, they've got 8 or 9 different ways that they're selling. That's how we need to go in it as content creators as well. So Kim, to your point, and Rob, just to build on what you're talking about, if you know that ahead of time, you don't freak out as much to say, oh, well, I can't just do it all through sponsorship. I can't just do it all through my book. No, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to diversify. It takes you 3 to 5 years to get there, but you'll get there.
Oh, such a good point. You know, the reality is to go back to Rob's point too, is like he gave us all kinds of strategies, right? There's no reason you have to stick to one of them. You can do multiple ones, you know, to tag on to what Joe's saying. So real quick, I'm going to come back to some of the questions that we got, but I want to do a giveaway because we have several giveaways. I'm going to talk to you guys about the giveaways real quick. These are some of the goodies that StreamYard is donating to us this week. We're going to be giving away a t-shirt first. I think it's a t-shirt and a sticker here is going to be our first giveaway. And I just want to say, I live in my sweatshirts, right? I mean, there you go. Those of us who have some swag from StreamYard, we love our swag. You guys are going to love the swag. So our first giveaway, and I'm just going to do a quick screen share so you guys can see how the giveaway tool works. And so we're going to pull out a winner for the hashtag podcast. So if you have not been using the hashtag podcast, you're going to want to do that. Okay. So we're going to choose a winner here. It can't be me. So it has to be. Okay. Oh, there we go. Brandy is going to be our winner for the, and Brandy, you are winning, just so that you know what you're winning. Let me get my, hang on. You won the t-shirt and it looks like a little sticker there. If you will go to kimgarst.com/winner, give us your details, like your shirt size and all the goodies, and we'll make sure that gets out to you. Obviously your shipping address, we're going to need that too. Okay. So if you will take care of that, we'll get back to the show. Now, keep in mind, there's going to be some more drawings. So definitely go back or continue to do the hashtag podcast so that you are eligible for, let me set it up one more time here. All right. Now, so we'll do 2 more giveaways during the course of the show. And there's some goodies, like there's some sweatshirts, just so you know, some more good stuff coming. All right. Going back to a couple of the comments and questions, because they were really good. There was a couple that are kind of crossed over. Like one of the questions was from, hang on, let me get it back pulled up here. Frank asked, you know, how do you test to see if your service or idea is viable and could be worthwhile to an audience and also profitable? Great question, right? And then we had another one here that kind of crosses over. Is there such a thing as a test marketing for a podcast, SIFT launching kind of thing? So either one of you guys want to jump in on those, or the kind of a little bit of crossover between those two questions?
Rob, maybe take the second. I'll take the first one.
Oh, go for it, Joe. Yeah, go for it.
Frank's question. So the best thing about creating a content creation business is you can build an audience first and test many different things out after that. So Frank, if you're asking me what I would do, I don't know if you have a product already, but I would not launch a product first. I would build an audience first. And that's the whole idea. I wrote a book called Content Inc. in 2021. That was that whole idea. Like if we build an audience, then we get to know that audience better than anyone else. And they will actually tell us what they want to purchase. When we launched Content Marketing Institute back in 07, 08, I had no idea that Content Marketing World, our large event, was going to be a product. The only reason that it was is we had a blog and a podcast at the time, and people kept emailing me and saying, Joe, are there any events for content marketing? I'm an enterprise marketer. I want to get together with my team. I need training. I did not have that on my radar at all, but we ended up building that because we built an audience first and then they asked for that. So whether or not, like, however, Frank, you build your base, and when I say building a base, you want to do one thing really well to start off with. That could be a podcast. That could be something on YouTube. Maybe they're both of the same thing. Maybe it's an email newsletter, which is how I like to launch mine, because if you build an audience through an email newsletter first, then you have an audience. So when you launch your podcast, like this whole thing is, how do you launch a successful podcast overnight? By having an audience first. you will make sure it's successful. If you look at all the great media companies out there that have launched successful podcasts, they build an audience through mostly email newsletter first, and then they can launch diversify through a podcast and be very successful. So Frank, I don't launch the product yet. Build the audience, find out the pain points, deliver consistently, whatever it was, a podcast, if it's an email newsletter, if it's a blog, whatever it is, over a long period of time, build that minimum viable audience, and then listen, reach out to them, do surveys, check on social media, figure out what they really need, where there's a gap in the marketplace, and then you can test your product launch.
That's so
Yeah.
good. That's so good.
So good.
Yeah, I want to add to what Joe was saying there. I learned something right there. It's actually launching through an email, which is really, really smart. I think a lot of people, obviously, you're thinking about videos, you're here, and so you may have a YouTube channel or Instagram or something else. But within for example, for my audience, we have X amount of subscribers. Not everyone will be interested in, say, digital products. Right. They may be there because they want to learn about, content creator finance or whatever it may be. But having a newsletter as your sort of where you want to build first is really smart, because then that segments your audience, and then you can sell a specific product to them. To add to what Joe is saying, once you've built your audience, then my take and what I've seen work really well when you sell your products is to pre-sell your products, and not, for example, many years ago, I learned this really, talking to a creator who spent about almost a year and a half building his course. Didn't tell anybody about it, didn't talk to his audience about it. When he launched it, it was crickets. There's nobody paying for this course. He didn't know what the pain points were, what the product market was looking for. And so he essentially wasted a year and a half, building this course that nobody wanted. Whereas really, that's when I realized that you have to flip it over. And so you have to pre-sell, you have to talk to your audience, do surveys, make sure that you understand what they want and what their pain points are, and then pre-sell the product. If it's a course, if it's some type of digital product that you can teach, it's educational. You may even want to consider teaching it live the first 1 or 2 cohorts, so that you really understand what those pain points are. You get feedback, direct response feedback, and you can fine tune that digital product. So again, it's just making sure that you're not wasting your time.
Yes.
That's a great piece of advice. You can do that with anything, by the way. You can do that with a book. Yeah. You can set up like, hey, well, anyone wanted to do testimonials for my book, I'll put you on the early list. You can test that out. That becomes marketing for you. When we launched Content Marketing World, which became a 4,000 person event. I didn't think I could get 150 people to Cleveland, Ohio to come to that event in 2011. We got a luncheon together. I basically fed a bunch of local people, and I said, hey, would you support this event locally? From that event, they said yes. I sold about 25 tickets up front. Just say, hey, are you interested in this? I didn't commit to it. I didn't book space. We got those people to sell it. And then ultimately we ended up getting 600 that first year, but we didn't know that. So pre-selling that, anything, whether it's a live event, virtual event, book, whatever, go to your core loyal audience that knows, likes, and trusts you already. They want to support you. It's Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans. This is actually a thing. Yeah. So focus on that group of loyal people that already know you. Those could be friends and family. That's okay. And then go from there and build that out once you get that buy-in initially.
So true. A couple of things I wanted to pull out from what you guys said. I pre-sell everything now. I don't create anything before I sell it. And that wasn't always the case. Back in the day, I would slave over all the things. And then to your point, sometimes you would put it out and there would be crickets. Like, even with an audience, sometimes if you don't really listen, or you think they know you think that they will buy something that they aren't ready for, even though they need it. There's lots of scenarios around that. But I basically pre-sell everything now before, and I do exactly what Rob said. I deliver it live the first couple of times to work out the bugs, make sure that it, is, fills the voids where there's, things that people might need that I didn't explain very well or whatever. So I 100% in alignment with that. The other thing too, is I would say even as much as 2-3 years ago, I would have never recommended a newsletter, because I always thought, well, who wants a newsletter? But today, y'all, newsletters are the bomb diggity for people whose time is limited, especially niche specific newsletters, where you have a value proposition that you can bring and you build an audience around that. Like I've segmented my audience around like just the AI space. Not everybody in my community is interested in AI. But I started an AI Authority Insider newsletter so the people that wanted that information can subscribe to that newsletter. They get it consistently. They, some of them, rave over it and love it and they pour through it. But now they don't have to dig around for all the things. They plug into my newsletter. Maybe they get other people's, but really getting niche specific, to go back to what Joe was saying about just finding that tilt for you. What is that content lane? You could already have a content bucket that you are known for, but slice something off of it, and start to be known for that. That's an authority play. So just thought a couple of things I just wanted to tag on to there. Can
I mention one thing on that, Kim, because it's really important? The other reason we're talking a lot about content on a lot of different platforms, email right now is the only place that we have any kind of control over distribution.
Amen.
I get up every day. Like, I love my LinkedIn audience. I love my audience on X. I love all, that's wonderful. But I wake up every day figuring, that might not exist tomorrow. I might get banned. The algorithm might change. The company might decide to change their distribution. The only one where I can port an audience from one provider to another is email. So that becomes the base. And then you can launch lots of things from that. So I would just put that out there because I don't want somebody, I know I have a lot of friends. I had one friend, really good friend recently, who lost their entire YouTube channel. Sometimes these things happen, and I don't want that to happen to anyone on this call. So
interesting you say that, because my largest social platform still is Twitter, X. Okay. I still can't get used to calling it X. But I lost access to it for over 6 months and had to really fight to get it. I thought I wasn't going to get it back. So to your point, and it wasn't due to anything. I just ended up getting locked out, couldn't get password reset thing. None of my contacts knew anybody at Twitter anymore, so it was like, how do I get in touch with a person there? So you never know. And when you build your house solely on that land, you've got a problem, or could have a potential problem. So I'm 100%, 150,000% in agreement with what Joe said. Building an email list, y'all, is imperative. Not just you should do it, it's imperative. So I know obviously everybody talks about, or I say it all the time, and I think y'all would agree, when it comes to creating content, so often the ability to know what tool to use to create it is half the battle. So what do you, as it relates to creating a podcast, I know we're using StreamYard. How does StreamYard make the process of creating podcasts in particular streamlined and easy to do? And either one of you can jump in on that.
Rob, you want to go first, and then I'll follow on my process? Sure.
Yeah, sure thing. So when I first started, like most of you probably, I got really excited with gear. I love gear. This is also during the pandemic. I was like, man, start shopping for stuff and, getting all this gear and lights and things, including tools, right? I was using StreamYard already. So that just made it so much easier. StreamYard is just a great platform for that. I think the simplicity is it's really hard to make something very simple to use, right? And so, so they've done a really great job with just keeping it really simple. And so myself as a creator, I really wanted to be consistent. I found that became a really big challenge for me with a busy schedule and all that stuff. And so I really gravitated to StreamYard because it just made things so easy. Go live, you can repurpose, you can do all sorts of things with StreamYard. You can multi-stream. Bringing on guests was such a no-brainer. It's so easy, low lift. You send them a link and they're here. Me and Joe are here so quickly. And so just trying to streamline your process, I think, is something that you just got to have a really hard look at, especially if you're a content creator and you create content every day. You got to look at your setup. So my setup is very simple. This is my setup. Pretty much anywhere you see me on camera, whether it's a meeting or a live stream or my YouTube channel, this is my setup. Really consistent, turn a couple, switches on, and away we go. And, here we are. And so I think that's really simple, really straightforward, just StreamYard to use that. As much as I can, batch record your content. Depending on your type of content and your niche, you may not be able to, because maybe you need to be really sort of like really up to date, real time type of content. But I think doing that is really important. And then the other thing that I would share here is, especially if you have an interview show, which I do, is schedule those ahead of time. Use a calendar tool like Calendly. Have an intake form. I use Google Forms to get all the information from my guest. And it's really self-serve. And then when I'm ready, I will go in and take care of all of that scheduling. But yeah, those are some of the easy things you can do.
Yeah, I honestly wish I had a tool like StreamYard years ago. I started my first podcast, This Old Marketing, in 2013, and we did it. I took 2 different audio files, put them together on Audacity or GarageBand. It took hours and hours to do. I ran it through a filter. God, I don't have to do any of that anymore. So, and plus we wanted, for This Old Marketing, which is my larger podcast on content marketing, we wanted to add video. I'm like, well, how do I really do that and link it up with YouTube? So basically, Robert Rose and I were co-hosts together on the show. We get together, we record it in StreamYard, and then it actually outputs the recording of the main file of both of us together, and it records us individually, because we can use those individual files for TikToks or YouTube Shorts or anything like that, and we do. And then what we do is we live stream it the next day out on LinkedIn. So both of us do to our individual pages. And then we also produce the full file to YouTube, as well as the individual shorts that I was talking about. So my production time has gone from literally by 2.5 hours to maybe 20 minutes. And that's just because I want to do a couple things with the titling and other things. It's so unbelievably easy, and I would use it for anyone. And the fact that I can live stream it as well, I can live stream it while we're doing it, or I can do it after the fact to LinkedIn or to X or to wherever, it just makes it too easy. And I know this is a StreamYard thing we're doing, but I like literally love this tool. And by the way, I use other tools. I use Podpage for the website. So thisoldmarketing.com is hosted by Podpage. I really recommend using them. I use Libsyn for hosting. I love all the partners. And this is just a Shure microphone and a nice little setup and Sony camera. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money to do what we're doing anymore. Really, all you need is a good microphone, and you're good to go with everything else if you use a StreamYard.
I love that.
So true. I mean,
can I add one more? Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more outside of the actual features of StreamYard is that they've got this community. I don't know if I just discovered this a little while ago. They have this community called Collab. And so if you're looking for guests or you're looking for people to collaborate with, check that out. So I just thought I'd add that.
Yeah, so good. And one of the things that you said that I loved, Joe, is, it used to be so much harder. Today, the tools that are available to us make the flow so much easier. The problem, and one of the reasons I like StreamYard, is because there is so much functionality to it. So you can use it for podcasting, you can use it for webinars, you can hint, you're going to see a lot of application for how you can use StreamYard over the course of this next week, for ease of use when it comes to content creation. Nobody got time for all the things anymore. Like, we're super busy, and, streamlining and having the right tool and knowing what the right tool is, I think it makes such a big difference. So absolutely 100% agree. So I want to do another quick giveaway, y'all. So give me a second. I'm going to pull on my screen again. We're going to do the giveaway here. We're going to draw. So if you guys have been using the, let me show you what we're giving away. That would be helpful too, right? So we're going to be giving away. Oh, nope. Oh, yay. Frank is the winner. Okay. I was like, I can't win. So it's got to be somebody else. But Frank, this is what you won. You're going to get a StreamYard mug. Y'all, I love the mugs, simply because they fit under my espresso machine. Okay. So if you have that problem, you know what I'm talking about. And you'll also get the beanie as well, Frank. So just so you know, that's the giveaway. We got one more coming, which is the doozy, but I'm going to ask just one or two more questions, probably just one more question. And we'll have that last drawing. Okay. So when it comes to creating content, I think a lot of times we've talked about audience and things of that nature, but one of the things I love about StreamYard, and not that we're trying to like just push StreamYard so much at you guys, but it is a good tool. So it's one of those factors when it comes to creating content is being able to engage with people, right? When it comes to the content you create, whether it's on a platform somewhere, or like Joe said, you can stream live, or you could watch it on, you could stream it, you could create it and then stream it live later. But how do you all manage that engagement when it comes to the social platforms that you're on? How do you get people to engage with you, like your top strategies, and then engage back with them with some specificity, if y'all don't mind sharing that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll real quickly,
Hi,
that's
Joe.
the reason why we decided to live stream through LinkedIn, because we wanted, now it's not live. It's actually about 12 hours later from when we recorded it, which is fine. Because Robert's on West Coast, I'm East Coast time. We're trying to get things together, but then we throw it out every Friday. It goes as an audio podcast at 4 a.m. So anybody wants to just listen to the audio, that's great. And then 8 o'clock in the morning on my LinkedIn channel, I've got that, and we get a ton of comments through that. And I just love to see what people are thinking. And we design the show a little bit to get some of that feedback. And if we're doing contests or we've got ads that we put in, I love to hear that content, and we get that specifically through LinkedIn. So that's the way that we gather that commentary. I don't know how you do it, Rob, but I love that. I was hesitant to add that component. Easy to do through StreamYard, but now that we're getting such good feedback, and I can actually talk to, we're building relationships with our audience directly because of it. By the way, you could do that on X as well. You could do it on Facebook. We just decide, because we're more of a business content podcast, we do it on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, yeah.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question before you jump in, Rob? What Allison's like, it's hard to get engagement. So you specifically said something that I keyed in on, which is you have things and built into your content that encourages engagement. Would you share like a couple of those things? Because I think this is such a critical component when it comes to creating content. If you're trying to get people to engage with the content in a way that is not a lurker environment, right?
So this is just, this is just part of your content plan. So whether you have an email newsletter, a YouTube channel, a podcast, whatever, you want to set it up that multiple times during the show, you ask questions to get them to do something. That could be some kind of a promotion. It could be a contest, but ask specifically, hey, what do you think? Or we're looking for feedback on this or whatever. Like I have a personal newsletter at joepolizzi.com that I send out. I said, hey, I'm going to the Florida Keys. Anyone got good recommendations on where I should go when I'm down there? And I got like 30 people coming back and say, no, I do want to know. I'm interested to know what my audience, but I also want to make sure that they respond. So I make sure during my email, I do that. We do the same thing through the podcast. So it's funny. I could see, at the 20-minute mark of the podcast on LinkedIn, people will start replying because I just asked the question. So the point is very simple. Just bake in questions into your process and make sure you do that deliberately and strategically.
So good.
Yeah.
And Rob, feel free to jump in on that too. If
Yeah.
you have additional strategies to get people to actually engage with you.
Yeah. I mean, two things. Exactly what Joe said. I think it's really, really simple. I think a lot of creators tend to want to broadcast their ideas and their wisdom, which is great. And you just kind of forget that human aspect of like, all right, what do you think about that? Or like, do you agree? Yes or no? And invite them. I think it's like that's as simple as it might be. That really is it. People want to be invited to send their comments. So on my podcast, there's always, like, usually after a thought or an idea, or even with a guest interaction, hey, take a pause here. Feel free to pause. I'd love to get your thoughts. Either comment that down below because it's also on YouTube podcast, or or send me a DM. My contacts is in the show notes. And that's really it. And you wouldn't believe, Kim, like how many people will send their ideas in because they want to be heard as well, right? I think that's like a human, everybody wants to be heard. And so, it's really simple.
Been doing this whole live streaming thing forever. And that's one of the things that I think we have to always keep in mind. It's a two-sided conversation, even though it's a one-sided conversation, right? So our audience wants to be seen. And you need to acknowledge that, because without an audience, you are, I hate to say it, but you're dead in the water. Like, if you have to have that back and forth, or you have no community. I really feel like that's something we forget sometimes when we're creating content is, yes, especially in a live environment where you're driving the conversation, but you have to give the listeners, the viewers, an opportunity to chime in. But I think lots of times that they don't feel that that's an opportunity for them unless we give them that opportunity.
And,
So,
and bake that in, and bake that into your next show. Yeah.
Yes.
So we get, and we love to do that. That's the best thing we do. We get more feedback because they'll give us the feedback on LinkedIn, and then the next show we will say, "Oh, Kim said on LinkedIn, whatever,"
Right.
and they feel validated by it. And because of that validation in public, you get other people to comment, and it spirals on itself.
So
absolutely, 100%. And it really is super important to make sure that you see your audience and validate them as much as you can. Bring them into the conversation flow. And the other thing that I think is super powerful when it comes to, especially lives in particular, is fostering community, because it's not just a back and forth between you and your audience. Real community happens in the comments between other people, right? So encouraging them to connect and support one another is also a value proposition too. And people really want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, so that really fosters that environment. Okay, guys, real quick, we're going to do the last giveaway, and the last giveaway is going to be a year's license to StreamYard Pro. This is a huge opportunity. So if, like I said, if you don't have StreamYard, or if you do, you've been using it, but you could get it for free for a year, I'm just saying, who wouldn't want that, right? So maybe I can win this. I don't know. But let me.
I better put mine in too. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So let's see who wins this time around. Barb, no, Angela, Barb. Okay, Keisha.
Yay.
Hey.
Keisha, you are the winner, girl. So all you have to do is go to, let's see, kimgross.com/winner, and put in your details, and we'll make sure you get that super duper prize. That's a good one. Huge win. So we're going to wrap up here. But because I really want to honor Joe and Rob's time with us. I mean, we could talk forever about this concept, but I wanted to kind of touch on how you could do the thing today. It doesn't have to be so hard. And hopefully we've painted the picture of that. But real quick, I want to make sure, if you don't have a free trial, or you've never tried StreamYard, go and grab a free trial at kimgarst.com/StreamYard. Everybody should at least give it a go. And I bet you're going to be super surprised at how amazingly easy it is to use. So following up with all that, Joe, if you would tell everybody where they can connect with you.
Oh, yeah. So you were talking about Content Entrepreneur Expo. We're trying to build content entrepreneurs out there, go from content creators, and think about how you can do this as a full-time business. You go to cex.events to get tickets to that. It's May 5th through 7th in Cleveland. If you want to come, I'd love you to be there. I'd love to meet you in person. Use code JP100 to save $100 off that. Would love to see you. And then all my personal stuff and my podcast and my books and everything are at joepulizzi.com, PULIZZI.com. And you can see kind of how I'm doing all this stuff. I think being a content entrepreneur is the greatest job on the planet. So if that's something you want to do, there's just things you just prepare for it. We can all do it. The tools are available, like you were saying, Kim and Rob. But we want to go through with the strategy that works. So I would just think about your audience and your tilt and your base and all the things we talked about on the show, and you'll be successful.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Such great advice. And Rob, how about yourself?
Yeah, you can connect with me at Joe's event. I was joking.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, you can just find me, copy and paste my name. I've got a really long, complicated last name on LinkedIn or YouTube or Instagram. Those 3 platforms, and you'll find me there.
That is so awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I tell you, between collectively, there's a lot of like deep experience today that you've had access to. I'm just popping in a couple of places you can connect with Rob over on LinkedIn. And definitely, if you have not got tickets to Joe's event, be a great place. I mean, I'm even thinking about jumping up there as well. It's not that far for me to go. So I'm thinking about grabbing some tickets and going myself. So hopefully we'll have a big old reunion and we can.
I'd love it. Let's all
See
get
it. Wouldn't
together.
that be fun?
I'll buy everyone a drink.
All right.
I actually will.
That's not a bad deal, y'all. I'm
There you
just
go.
saying. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, guys. I would like to
Thank you,
thank
Kim.
not only the guests that we had today, but I would also like to share my appreciation for all of you. Seriously. I mean, I know time is valuable, and when you share some of it with us, we appreciate it immensely. I'm hoping that you walk away from today's show with something that you can take advantage of, take into your business, and do something with. Don't hesitate to reach out to any of us if you need assistance. All right. Take care of yourselves. God bless, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.